Hey guys, and welcome to some 2v2 madness as the unlikely alliance of Skaven and Dwarfs do rally up against the corrupted Empire and the Warriors of Chaos. A very unthematic game overall. We'll have to pop in here and have a quick little look to see what our builds are like. And one of the reasons I wanted to showcase this battle here today, apart from it being pretty crazy all round, is one of the most powerful, in my opinion, slightly broken units in the game. And I'm going to slowly zoom in towards them. I'm sure you guys have figured it out by now, and it's not just these guys, but it's kind of everyone within this bracket, and by that I mean the Poisoned Wind units. So Poisoned Wind Globadiers, Poisoned Wind Mortars, as well as the Avalanche Mortars, so Death Globe Mortars I suppose is their official name, I think are a tiny little bit overpowered at the moment, and probably the most, best units in the entire game. So I wanted to do a little showcase on those guys. Now the reason these guys are so good and cost effective is not only are the foot troops here only 550 gold, they have this really awesome effect, or scary effect I should say, on their missile strength, which is Poisoned Wind. So if just one of these little globes does indeed make contact with an enemy, this is the same as well for the mortars. If just one mortar makes contact, it is going to apply this poison, which does damage over time to an enemy unit, and it gets you some insane value. So I have to see how these guys can perform here today. They do magic damage as well, which does make them a little bit niche as well to boot. So apart from that, we do have the Avalanche Mortars here in the central pocket. I think people consider these guys to be a little less overpowered, but the way they can shred through infantry in just a single volley pretty much, I think they, they're up there as well. So we'll have to see how those guys do indeed perform. Apart from that, we're not going to go into too much depth with the build, as of course there's a lot of army here to be seen. But for our main core here, we do have a Master Assassin working alongside the Thing, as well as more Skitter's Hellion. There we go. The Regiment of Renowned Mutant Rat Ogre, who's incredibly fearsome. I'm a big fan of the Mutant Rat Ogres all round. They're incredibly quick, get around the battlefield, and do some pretty decent damage as well. Apart from that, it's just mainly chaff. We have a ton of slaves in the front line, backed up by slightly more elite clan rats, as well as plague monks in the central pocket, alongside a plague priest coming in with all those nasty summons. The idea is just to chuck endless waves of slaves and heavily armored dwarves at the enemy, while our ranged troops really pack a punch and do a decent amount of damage. So yep, 2 Poison Wind Globadiers are going to be our damage dealers, as well as these mortars. For my ally here, he's gone very artillery heavy, coming in with 4 cannons to be precise, and then a ton of cheap and cheerful dwarfs, longbeards and dwarf warriors mixed throughout the battle line, with a ton of thunderers as well for a little bit added bonus, and double slayers to back them up. Let's have a quick little look at his lord as well. It looks like Belagar has indeed turned against the Empire here, allying himself with a assassin, which is pretty scary stuff for a dwarf to do for sure. This is definitely going to be going in the book for Belagar, despite victory or loss. For our opponents here, they've gone very infantry heavy. We have a ton of Chaos Warriors dotted all the way along for the forces of Chaos, with some Halberdiers to back them up as well. No chosen for them. For the Empire, we have a pretty big force of state troops there in the form of swordsmen, spearmen, and halberdiers, and that infantry force is going to be backed up by a warrior priest, going to be coming in here and buffing up those guys, encouraging them to greater feats of heroism. Up in the skies, you do have the mighty Karl Franz, and of course, whenever you see Franz, you're pretty much guaranteed to see a Jade Wizard coming in with a simple regrowth here. No Earth Blood for him, however. Going to be looking to pair himself alongside Franz to keep him nice and topped up. We've got a pretty decent range core as well, double Hellstorm rocket batteries. Very good up against dwarves because they do outrange the cannons, can kind of sit back, and they're pretty good at getting rid of our cannon crews and the like, artillery crews in general, and scaring them off the field. We do have a Hell Cannon as well for the Warriors of Chaos, and some Huntsmen mixed into the trees. And to round up this last little bit of the build, we have some Dragon Ogres, who are indeed going to be led by their Lord and Saviour, the mighty Kolek Suneater, a true man, myth, and legend. Pretty risky pick coming up against these Skaven and Dwarfs, in my opinion, who can bring a ton of long-range missile pressure, and he's a rather big target if you didn't notice. But at the same time, if he can get in there relatively unharmed, he can run over dwarfs very, very quickly. Now, our opponent with the Hellstorm did some good initial targeting, did force me to take back the Avalanche Mortars, realising they were a bit of a threat, and now he's going to be focusing down the dwarfs for the most point. I do have some Skaven slave slingers who are just cackling and flinging those little pebbles at the Chaos Warriors, having a good time and making my opponents also waste kind of spells and magic on these guys, who are incredibly cheap and cheerful all round as they do scurry away here, away from the pesky Chaos Warriors before turning and throwing a few more stones as well. So in come the Avalanche Mortars, and you can see just off one volley, they do about a third health to some Chaos Warriors. Not too many kills, however. These guys just tend to lose a lot of HP. And of course, once they do get into combat, those guys will start dropping like flies. Dwarven Artillery is focusing down at the Hell Cannon, who was well positioned behind some trees, but it looks like despite that, the good accuracy of the Dwarven eyes there have managed to carve them apart. We are pushing forward now with our Skaven slaves here, just to sacrifice them into the front lines, but this is mainly to allow the Poison Wind Globadiers some more time to get in here, throw those shots over and do some really big burst damage. As you can see, Halberdiers as well are going to be arriving to the battlefield with about half health, not good for them at all. The Poison Wind's already up to 7 kills, and you can see that effect going off here now. It is also affecting friendly troops, however, but, you know, they're Dwarfs, this is all part of the Skaven plan. If we can hurt some Dwarfs and some Chaos Warriors at the same time, I am all about it. As you can see over on the right hand side as well, opponents are going for a bit of a flank overload. A big fan of flank overload myself. Coming in with Kolek, Dragon Ogres, Karl Franz, as well as Cavalry. So we are going to be wheeling about the Thing as well as our Regiment of Renowned Mutant Rat Ogre. But this is not a good situation for us. Yes, we're anti-large with the Thing, or not anti-large, with the huge armor piercing bonus versus large and good stuff. But the Reichland Runefang, Stand Your Ground, and Stand or Die have all been popped on this massive overload. So we're going to be pulling out of here as quickly as possible, letting some summoned clan rats hold back the enemy, and we'll come back when all those buffs have been debuffed. So the mortars continue to rain fire down on the Chaos Warriors of Halberds here, up to 40 kills so far, doing a pretty decent job. And Poison Wind Globadiers are having a whale of a time. One's on the right hand flank, a little bit more sketchy, kind of in the midst of all these enemies. They are protected by the more elite Plague Monks here, as well as the Plague Priest itself. We have managed to draw Kolek away from his allies a little bit here by falling back here with the Hellion here. I managed to get him into a bit of an isolated, decent position. So we are going to be coming back in with the Thing, trying to do a bit of 2-for-1 action, as it looks like the Dragon Ogres are distracted at the moment by Longbeards, and Karl Franz as well has betrayed the Sun Eater and is no longer busting him up, instead hunting down Plague Monks and the like himself, with some really cool animations in the distance there. But yeah, looks like the poor Kolek is now going to get surrounded by some Slayers. He's trying to push his way through. He's got incredible mass and should be able to, half his way through a lot of Dwarves. Kind of a big cleaving strike there, disembowering quite a few Dire Warriors. But the Thing is in hot pursuit, as well as the Hellion, which is incredibly quick, always going to be getting in those pestering attacks. Lumen Dread has been popped on Kolek as well, which should help us hopefully finish him off. Dwarfs are rallying to the Skaven cause now, trying to block him in where possible, as Franz is being distracted, attempting to assassinate a Plague Priest, while the Master Assassin is going to be forcing off the Jade Wizard in the distance there. So if we have a little look over here, Kolek has indeed started to rout from the field, and Karl Franz is now desperately trying to come over to his aid, but a little bit too little too late, perhaps intentional there from the Franz Meister. Kolek should be able to rally himself though and bring himself back to the fray, but now Franz is a little bit isolated, and this is something we've managed to do all game. Frontline has been getting dumpstered by our Poisoned Wind unit, so we managed to focus and kind of micromanage our big entities quite a lot. The Hellion was going toe-to-toe with Franz before thinking, you know what, maybe we don't want to do this, maybe he's a little bit too tough for us. But with a summon coming in, we're going to be springing at the ultimate trap. So clan rats have been popped in here, and the Plague Priest has started to go toe-to-toe as the Thing comes in for a lovely rear attack. Rival High Tasman has been popped as the Master Assassin comes into the rear, and even the Dwarfs are getting in on the action, coming in from all angles. Karl Franz is completely surrounded and getting pinned in here by the heavily armoured Dwarfs. And yeah, Franz, you can pop stand ground all you want, but so many elite troops coming all in at once. Franz goes from full health to no health in a matter of seconds, and down the Emperor of the Empire race does indeed go. Over on this side, you can see Poison Wind's nearly running out of ammunition, up to over 135 kills for a 550 gold unit. They're so good, and the cannons are unleashing hell now upon the enemy. Well, it looks like for the most part, Hellstorm rocket batteries have managed to use up their ammunition, getting huge kills and value across the board, which is really good work from them. Kolek, though, has returned to the field. He's struggled a little bit, got some decent kills, but got in some nasty engagements as well. Poison Wind's even going to be firing into him as well, as Thunderer and Cannon Fire does arc in from all angles. The mighty Kolek probably is going to want to run from the field, as he's had, his fill of bloodshed for today. Down to just 550 health, as some cannon shots do arc in the back, making him flip head over heels there, and the mighty lords of the enemy have been dealt with. Wizard does have Lumen Dread popped on him now as well. Going to allow the Master Assassin to catch up. And the Master Assassin has some of the coolest animations in the game. Certainly an undervalued combatant in my opinion. Coming with those awesome Wolverine claws there. Also throwing some stars into the Jade Wizard as Cannon 5 does arc overhead as well. Master Assassin should be able to catch him though with Lumen Dread popped if he takes a breather for any set amount of time. And just as I say, so there he does. And the Master Assassin comes in with some whirling attacks, spinning those blades with deadly efficiency. And the Jade Wizard is routed from the field, and it looks like that's pretty much going to be game over. If we take an overarching view of the battlefield, we've taken quite a pounding all round, but still have a lot of our key targets left alive and active. Poisoned Wind, or Avalanche Mortar, sorry, and Poisoned Wind Globadiers on this side have both used up all their ammunition, which is pretty crazy value for sure there. We even have some Skaven slaves return to the field to help the Dwarfs chase off these pesky Chaos Knights. Hellstorm, trying to make a desperate last stand, up to 173 kills, is focusing down some of the characters now of the Skaven, but cannons are going to be returning in kind now, trying to focus down the Empire artillery. Master Assassin still once again chasing the Jade Wizard, who looks like he's going to be popping off a fat regrowth, maybe on himself, but it is indeed an overcast, and looks like that is indeed going to actually shatter him there as well. Not sure who that was on. It looks like it was the Warrior Priest trying to keep him alive and active, but with his newfound strength, he's actually going to be using it to run for the field. And it looks like Armilosis has set in. It is simply the one dwarf left of the Hell Cannon crew, who's going to be making a sacrificial charge into the Slayers. I don't blame him. It's, you know, a good way to go, I suppose, if you can take one or two more dwarfs down with you, but it looks like he's simply going to get his arms cut off, and it will be a Pyrrhic victory to the unlikely duo of Dowie and Skaven. So, hope you guys enjoyed that one. Before we get into a little bit of analysis, if you did enjoy, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. Also, feel free to comment, guys. I can no longer get back to all the comments, just because the sheer amount of them, which I'm really grateful for, and I do still read all the comments, and I do try to reply to as many as possible, so they are greatly appreciated. Anyway, well played there to Defcon 102 and Syme, with his little happy eyes as well there, and also very well played to my ally Logic. This was in fact streamed, I believe, over on his YouTube channel, which is Logic_EU. So if you want to go see the whole event, we played 4 or 5 2v2s together, feel free to go check him out. He also does a lot of campaign kind of videos and the like. But anyway, what we're really here for is the value on these pesky units. As I said before, Poison Wind Globadiers, Avalanche Mortars, and the Death Globe Mortars, in my opinion, are the most powerful units in the game. Now, if you do disagree with that, feel free to let me know down below what you think is the most powerful unit, and what do you think is the worst unit as well. I wouldn't mind doing a video on that. But anyway, Poison Wind Globadiers coming in, 141 kills, and for a unit which is worth 550 gold, they got 2,040 damage value and 22,000 damage dealt. And the other units did even better, 29,000 damage dealt and 2,800 damage value. That is just insane value on these guys. Now, they were allowed to fire for the majority of the time unimpeded, of course, and that is a big thing about the Poison Wind Globadiers, is that they're relatively short range and can be shut down far easier than the mortars can. If we look at the mortars here, 33,000 damage dealt, 3,000 damage value, and the regular Death Globe mortars, some people think, are even more powerful as well. Personally, I like the Regiment Round ones because it really hammers down the enemy quite quickly before they hit the front line, and kind of breaks up their assault a little bit, because you can often rout units with these ones a little bit easier than the regular mortars. But yeah, the regular ones are pretty deadly as well. Big MVP here, though, would be more Skitter's Hellion here, the Mutant Rat Ogre. Only 7 kills, but a fantastic presence of hunting down those large creatures, pinning in Kolek, pinging in Karl Franz. Still managing to get a decent 2,000 damage value despite only 7 kills. Kind of showcases that, you know, he did a pretty decent job for sure. As for Logic, the Dwarfs did a pretty decent job. You know, the cannons got some good value on some of them, some only a little bit okay. But the Slayers were pretty pivotal as well, coming in clutch to surround some key targets. And the sacrifice of the Longbeards and Dwarf Warriors shall not be in vain, as I was cackling and throwing poison both on them and the enemy all round. As for the forces of the Empire, those Hellstorm rocket batteries did pretty insane work here. Looks like they got 149 and 175 kills apiece. Is very scary stuff, especially when Dwarfs are concerned, as they are relatively elite. And the mighty Kolek got in there, managed to do some pretty decent damage, over 10,000 damage dealt, but he's a very expensive boy and pretty risky pick here all round. But still, really fun build. Big kills as well coming in from the Chaos Knights. Good to see those guys in action. So as I said before, guys, As we do close up this video, what do you think is the most powerful unit in the game right now? Do you agree with me? Do you think it is the units which have the Poisoned Wind effect, as well as the Avalanche Mortars? And yeah, so Poisoned Wind Globadiers, Poisoned Wind Mortars, or do you think it is something else entirely? Let me know down below. So until next time, guys, peace, and as always, stay awesome.